Going on. Okay. Doesn't seem too blurry. Okay. It was blurry for a second there, but looks like we're good. I did not do a true unboxing this time because watching me fiddle with this kind of thing is probably not that interesting to the audience. I tried to go to a couple music stores yesterday and get some further answers on this particular brand, but the one was not open and the other one was, I guess, didn't have any in stock, so they didn't really feel like dealing with it. I think they wanted to either sell me something they had there or just get me to leave. I'm not really sure what was going on. There was a less expensive Ibanez version that is similar to the one that I used to own. I did that video about a year ago, so if you haven't seen that, you can check it out. I also have a video about the Epiphone Dot. Both of these are, of course, kind of Gibson copies, Epiphone being a subsidiary, Ibanez not. But this guitar is more similar to the Ibanez Archtop, I believe it was. But this one I got it was listed as used, but I think it was actually a factory second. So I can get into that in a minute. Like there's a little bit of rough edge here on the binding with the glue or whatever, and this tuning knob that don't match the look of any of the ones that I've seen on other videos. This one's real sticky. It had some black gunk kind of on it, and I was able to get most of it off with my fingernail. I don't know if that's some Bondo that went bad or some kind of lubricating oil that turned solid somehow. I'm not really sure. There's a couple little nicks out of it, but overall, we have, this kind of deal. I guess there's a model that's 100. They're in increments of 100. The 503 that might have a better top for whatever reason, but then it doesn't have the inlays. And there's the headstock with the logo. Now the Ibanez and the similar Gretsch model have two humbucking pickups instead of the single, and this pick guard is kind of down farther on the body so it doesn't get in the way of the strings as much. But if you can see, there's kind of spacers in there. My arm can be kind of, if I can get the angle correct. Yeah, there we go. So I don't know how much you can actually lower that with that. There's like a single screw here. And I guess in some of the models, the electronics run under the pick guard, and it has a hidden kind of volume switch, kind of like what they do with acoustic guitars, with the electronics in the sound hole. So we only have a volume and a tone knob. We have the F holes. Now for the money, I was a little surprised to find that these are made in Beijing, China. And I think they look decent. For the most part, like I said, there's a couple spotty areas. I might have to just get new tuners altogether. But I mean, obviously, a Chinese factory can make a decent looking guitar when they want to. I haven't heard, about, there's a video I was going to watch about if their quality control has kind of slipped on this brand. I don't know. I'm not familiar with them. I guess a lot of people were reviewing these 5 or 6 years ago, and it was kind of a thing. And then that kind of ended. But the reason I sold the Ibanez, when I got it, I wasn't really looking for a jazz guitar. It was kind of a fluke, but I really liked this short scale neck. So I was constantly trying to play rock and roll with it. And of course, this will overdrive your amplifier. It'll feedback like crazy, even if you're not trying to be distorted or crunchy. So that was an issue. And so I got rid of it. And so now I was trying to find something that was similar, but technically an upgrade. Is this an upgrade? I don't know. Literally 1-to-1, but the price for this normally is quite a bit higher. But as I said, this was listed as a used model because I think it was a factory second. And my cord's going to want to make noise, but so we have a single humbucking pickup. Now, the true jazz guitars that, you know, the old ones are like $15,000 or more. They'll have a much thicker body even, and they can be played, you know, acoustic and project through a ballroom and, you know, be heard over a chorus of horns. This, you're going to need amplification. I think, you know, part of the reason I wanted this also is because at night, when I don't want to play a dreadnought, I can actually play this quieter and practice without, you know, really worrying about disturbing someone. Now, your neighbors may be more light sleepers or whatever. Your results may vary, but, you know, it also has that kind of sound that not so boomy, right? I'm not using a pick. So, you know, if you're just strumming, it's not super loud compared to an acoustic guitar. So if I want to be, you know, kind of folky, you can do that. But again, this kind of gets in the way a little bit if you're maybe finger picking style. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But when you I think part of the reason Ibanez and the other brands maybe do the two pickups is kind of to familiarize themselves better with rock players who are, you know, maybe attempting jazz. I'm not positive. I think if you are recording, you might want some of that extra tonal variety that you would get from blending the two pickups. But I think if you're playing live, you're not going to have a ton of time in between songs to really be fiddling with four knobs and trying to dial in sounds and that kind of thing. So I don't know. But, and again, if you're playing behind a lot of brass, it's not going to matter as much. You're more there for atmosphere. Whereas if you're in a smaller quartet or, you know, a three-piece or something where the guitar is the feature, then of course you may or may not want more sounds to be able to get to. Now, I don't often kind of a clip notes there, but I don't usually do sound samples, as I always explain, because this microphone doesn't pick things up very well, and it will tend to mute out and whatever if it gets overwhelmed. But I'll try and show how, you know, it sounds with single notes. Just I had to adjust. I hadn't really played with it much. I had to adjust it slightly here where the strings were really buzzy, and you can get a little bit of, you know, can you hear that resonation out through coming through there already? So, you know, it's one of those things. Like I said, you can get a lot of feedback. So instead of a regular practice amp, like I said, I'm using a bass practice amp. So everything is kind of like no reverb, no any, you know, frills. Oops. And a couple of these strings are, they didn't string it right. There's, I don't know, little bubbles and things here. But, you know, eventually I'll have to change those anyway. But so, you know, pretty decent tone with fingers. Whereas with the pick, I think I get a lot of more sharpness. So of course we can roll that down a little bit. I intentionally don't play anything that sounds like anything on these videos also because I don't know about copyright with YouTube and all that. So I'm not going to break my brain worrying about it. And if we're talking about jazz, then yeah, any note is a good note, right? That's the joke from The Office. Just play the right notes. I don't know. The guy was saying, oh, it needs to be set up, but I don't know how much there is to set up. There's like one bridge, and you know, the strings are coming out of this metal thing, so it's metal on metal back here. So I was getting kind of an annoying effect there, but it seems to have, like I said, kind of calmed down now that I tweaked this slightly. Yeah, if you're trying to restring and you don't really want to mess with the floating bridges and all that kind of thing. Because I'm really not used to the pick guard being right there. Used to it being a little bit lower. I don't know if that sounds good at all. Blame the microphone, not the instrument, right? Let's see if I switch back to here. It's too awkward. I keep meaning to move back, but I've tried that before and it doesn't show as much as I would like either. So it's kind of like, well, I can't really hold it and show it while I play it. I apologize for my limitations. But so yeah, this is the basic model. So I don't know if you can get this kind of short scale of a neck on very many electric guitars besides the Les Paul or maybe the SG. I'm not sure. And you know, it doesn't have quite as extreme of a burst pattern like on the neck and all that. It's more of a wood grain, but I don't mind. I mean, when I bought the Ibanez, it was because it was so beautiful. You know, it was kind of like, I didn't even care if it was a low quality thing because it was dazzling to look at, but I didn't think it was that low quality of a thing for the price, really. And so, so I'm kind of reluctant to say, you know, whether or not this is, you know, a totally high quality, but I'm to believe that this might be plastic, not wood. So when you get into the higher up models, you know, maybe you're getting better components for the money. But overall, the binding and everything seems to be pretty decent. I mean, you pay extra for, you know, the more priority shipping, and then UPS still drives it around in a hot truck for a whole day. So the fact that the whole thing didn't melt or disintegrate or all the glue didn't, you know, completely burst at the seams is kind of surprising. The fret ends feel decent. There's maybe one that's a little bit so yeah, I mean, you know, for what it is, I guess it's fine. And of course, there are other versions with, I think, more expressive inlays, and I like having the inlays, but most of their more expensive versions actually don't have anything on the neck at all, which is in the thumbnail, because I couldn't find this exact one to use for the thumbnail, and I didn't feel like taking a whole new picture that would come out worse than the internet picture of that one, so I just used that one. Yeah, like I said, like these tuners, I haven't seen these types of pegs on the other models of guitars, so I'm not really sure if that's standard or if that's a fluke. I don't know what year this is. I guess I could look up the serial number on their site and maybe I would get some information. I didn't even think about it. I wasn't really worried about it until I do a video like this and people are like, but what are the specs? I don't know. Because when you buy it from certain retailers and all it says is, you know, comes with a case, this one actually had more specs than usual, and I didn't think to copy them down. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't that worried about it. I was more kind of worried about getting it while it was at that price, since, you know, there was no other one and available in that range. So it was like, okay, so they do have other models, and maybe they're worth that, and maybe they're not. I don't know. I'm definitely not as good of a jazz player that I'm really looking for a super expensive jazz guitar anyway, because like I said, I kind of want this one more for being able to switch between wanting to be jazzy and moody once in a while and wanting to be quieter at night when I just want to you know, do that without a dreadnought boom. So like I said, you can see if the microphone picks it up, you know, like that's kind of a normal practice volume. Because again, I'm not playing with drums when I'm doing that. You know, if you're playing with drums, you're going to need obviously more amplification. Jazz drumming usually not as noisy as rock drumming, but I'm pretty sure Buddy Rich was loud. I go to, I used to go to these jams, and the guys were always kind of like slower, quieter. I'm like, slower, quieter. Have you actually heard Gene Krupa and Art Blakey? They're not playing slow and quiet on everything with brushes. Sorry, but anyway, so yeah, I guess that's about all I can really say for now. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll do the next one sooner than later.